Hey guys, Rollout here, and welcome back to another episode of Builder's Block. And, things don't seem to be in hellfire and chaos just yet. I opened up the Builder's Block Discord server last week, and it's been pretty fun so far. So, if you're interested, there will be an invite link in the description. You can feel free to jump right in. Also, of course, consider supporting the show on Patreon, to which I've added a couple of Discord perks, and you'll get your name credited at the end of the episode for just $1. So go check it out. There's a link in the description for that as well. And without further ado, let's get started. So I started off the week by building this oil lamp, and that's actually because of last week's episode, to be honest. If you don't know how this works, if you haven't caught on, I title every video something that I say during the episode, and I don't actually decide what the episode is titled until I've edited it, because this isn't scripted, it's just spontaneous. I just ramble whatever comes to mind. And I ended up calling the last episode Wish Fulfillment, and then I built this on the day after, so that was fresh on the mind, and I thought, hey, I'll build a oil lamp, or a genie's lamp. That seems interesting, because they're kind of an interesting shape. I mean, especially in Lego, and especially at this scale, it ended up being quite a bit more difficult than I expected it to be, despite the fact that this is a very simple model. You can see to demonstrate the smoke coming out of the nozzle spout. I don't know the anatomy of an oil lamp, but I fastened this Monkey Kid wisp piece to this horn element just with a rubber band, because what else am I supposed to do? These two parts aren't exactly compatible. I couldn't really think of a better way to connect them together. I mean, without like cutting some pneumatic tube or something like that. Like that's an option, but not only did I not have a white pneumatic tube, but I didn't want to go that far. So I just did this simple, easy trick. Wrap it together with a rubber band. Here it is without the wisp. It's kind of a cool shape. There's some interesting parts usage. What's annoying is that almost every single piece that makes this up is available in gold, either metallic gold or pearl gold, and I just don't have them. So I had to kind of work with what I did have and try and balance the colors. So it's got some tan, it's got some yellow and proper gold. But just the fact that it is possible to build this entirely in gold, or almost entirely in gold, is a little bit frustrating, because I'm not going to go out of my way to order parts just for a simple daily build like this. Here it is, deconstructed just a little bit. You can see how the like elephant trunk piece and the horn attached to a Travis brick, and then the pieces attached to the side and the top. I especially like the little chain that attaches to the handle. That's a detail that's on a lot of very ornate oil lamps. And I think it looks pretty good, especially considering the scale. Because like I said, it was a little bit more difficult than I expected it to be to kind of capture the shape of this object. On the next day, I decided to go ahead and follow up on something that I mentioned in the last episode. So I talked about how I experimented with Lego stickers in order to give Dragoon eyes, specifically to give him pupils in his eyes, and I lamented that I didn't take any pictures to show off that process. So I decided to do that on this day. So this sticker sheet is from a racing set, specifically a Disney Cars set. It's actually the same sticker sheet that I got the number stickers from for my Dimensional Robo creations. And something that I only recognized, actually, after I took this picture, is that I suppose technically every single Lego sticker sheet has numbers on it when you think about it. If you wanted to go so far as to cut all of the serial numbers or the part numbers out of the frame of a sticker sheet. Yeah, there's a 9, a 6, a 3, a 4, a 2. There's all sorts of numbers on Lego sticker sheets. So I I guess I didn't necessarily need to spend $5 on one of these sticker sheets just to get my dimensional robos looking the way I wanted them to. But I like that it's actually a properly official cut sticker, so whatever. Anyway, I have all of these extra stickers left over from those sheets. Always keep your Lego sticker sheets around. You'll never know when you need them. And I took this checkered flag, this racing flag here, and I cut out sections of it into the size of the side of a 1x1 plate, so that it has some sections of white and a pupil in the middle, as you can see here on the right. And then I stuck it to either side of this lamp holder piece, which makes up the eyes of Dragoon. And here it especially looks good. I think on the model itself, these stickers unmodified, just the squares, the same exact size they were on the checkered flag. It's a little bit too cartoony. I mean, he looks awfully surprised here. Strangely, I think it's almost like Minecraft-esque. Like, this looks like a Dragoon from a Beyblade Minecraft mod to me. That's just the impression I get from the eyes looking the way they do, being very blocky, the proportions of those eyes. So from here, I went ahead and modified that sticker a little bit further. I mean, I'm already cutting it out of the sticker sheet. I might as well. And I made the eye a little bit smaller and a little bit thinner. And I actually think this looks a little bit better. It's a little bit more proportionate to the way they're supposed to be in the anime and on the Beyblades themselves. And I think this just about works, but I'm still on the fence about implementing it. I don't really have much of a problem with implementing something like this, modifying stickers, using stickers on a mock. But that said, it still feels a little bit weird, and I don't know if I want to jump to this method right away, especially when I have not yet built the other bit beasts, because I very much feel like this is either an all or nothing situation where either all four of them are going to have eyes like this with stickers the exact same way, or none of them will. And I kind of don't think I'll know if I want to go this route until I have more of them built. Maybe even all four of them built. We'll see. You can also see I made a couple small changes to Dragoon. I went ahead and changed his tail so that it has 4 spikes, like I mentioned last week, and I actually think I like this a little bit better. I wasn't sure about whether I wanted to go with the 2-spike version of Dragoon or the 4-spike version, but having built this, I like the simplicity of it. It makes a lot of sense. It's elegant. And that's what I'm after here. So I think I might keep this tail design that you can see in the background. On the next day, I went ahead and tried to modify one of the wings that I built last week in order to suit Drunzer a little bit better. I changed the jointage a little bit so it fits with his armor a little bit more. You can see the rounded elements that attach the lower half of feathers there, and some of those feathers have some yellow armor on it. Those rounded pieces can be made to be yellow so that that armor is seamless, so that there isn't a gap in between, and that would be the plan. Hopefully that looks good. I mean, I don't have those pieces in yellow just yet, so I don't know how it'll look, but I hope it works out well. The wing is now on 2 different planes so that the end of it can collapse a little bit better. It now folds both forward and back. It goes up and down on that shoulder armor there, and I've added some feathers below the arm to try and make things a little bit more seamless, but also collapsible. It's lacking a little bit of articulation, but I don't think any of that articulation is necessary for Drunzer. He does a lot of wing spreading and not a whole lot of wing collapsing, and the poses that he is seen with his wing collapsed, this can achieve on some level, so I think it's good enough. I think it's fine, and again, I hope in the proper colors it looks all right. And then from here, I went ahead and tried to build as much of Drunzer's body as I could, and I'll be honest with you, I kind of threw this together. Now, here we go, because this is going to be in one of those situations where I have problems with something and everyone's going to tell me it looks cool and it's all right. But I need to explain myself. I need to explain why I don't like it, despite the fact that it probably looks okay. So here's what I have so far of Drunzer. He's got the head, the body, and I connected it to one of the wings here. And it's all right. I think it's acceptable. There's just a lot about this that feels heavy-handed to me. Again, I threw a lot of it together, and it's a little janky in ways that I don't like. Certain things are accomplished in ways I don't like. I'd like to streamline it. I don't think that this is going to be scrapped. I've built too much of it for that to be an option, I think. But since this day, I have not yet continued this project because I think I just need to let it steep. I need to think on it before I continue. And at the time of this recording, I have not continued this project. So what you see now is all I have at the moment. And I want to talk about it a little bit and express my feelings about it before I continue working on this project. I think it looks pretty cool. The head is quite similar to Dragoon's. And at first, I'm not sure I liked that. I wanted it to be kind of distinct, but it definitely makes them both have a similar style, which is growing on me. Again, it's been a few days since I built this, and it has had time to grow on me, but I definitely think it needs some modification in order for it to be up to whatever arbitrary standard just doesn't sit right with me at the moment. Drunzer is very similar to Dragoon in that between all of the different arts of the character, it's extremely inconsistent. In some details, certain things are one color. In other versions of the character on certain arts, they're a different color. In the anime, he has just completely golden armor on a couple of the Beyblades. He has like a blue or a green jewel on his chest, and for the time being, I decided to omit that and just give him the yellow armor from both the anime and the later versions of Drunzer. You know, it's complicated. Like I said, it's inconsistent. I'm just working with what works best at the moment. And like I said, I kind of threw together, especially his neck and the way his neck attaches to his body. And again, there are certain things about the wings that I'm not particularly happy with. Here they are folded up. Like I mentioned, they could be folded up. This is the extent that they collapse. And again, when you look at it from one certain angle, it does appropriately capture the only pose you ever see Drunzer in with his wings collapsed. So I honestly think that's good enough. I don't think it needs to collapse any further than this. You can see how I captured the mane, and I'm really not happy with the way it attaches to the back. It's all one piece. It just kind of sits there. The way I built his body makes that a little bit inevitable, but I am going to try and do some different things. I want his mane to be a little bit more full than this. I also would really like his neck to be a little bit more different than this. Something I really like about Dragoon is the monotony of the build, how everything has repetition to it, it makes sense, it is consistent with itself, and I feel like a lot is going on here that conflicts with itself, if that makes any sense at all. I just want this build to be a little bit more consistent with itself, and I don't know how to fully express that in a way that I know you'll understand, but just like, if nothing else, understand the way it's built right now. I'm a little unsatisfied with, and I'm going to try and make it sit a little bit better with me, but I might just have to redesign the entire neck, or at the end of the day, settle for this and move on. Who knows? Again, I'm going to try doing some different things later on, and for now, I've taken a break from this model. Here is the internal structure of his body, and it's a little bit of a mess. The way you are forced to build around these lamp holder pieces, these eyelet elements that connect the two halves of his body together, it's extremely frustrating. The dimensions of that piece are very specific, and because of it, I needed to get a little cute with the way I attached his waist and his neck, and it's a little bit janky, and I don't really like it. It uses these thin clip elements that fit inside of a brick, and something about that I don't like. I think there's a way I can streamline it, probably, but who knows? Again, the parts I'm using here limit me in ways that I'm not particularly fond of. His neck doesn't have a whole lot of articulation, and that might be inevitable as well. Right now, all it can do is kind of extend out to this position and then fold a little bit. And granted, Dragoon's neck can only move up and down as well. There is no left to right movement there either, so it's probably okay. But like the way it attaches to the body and the way the mane kind of goes into the like bridge of the neck there with the cheese slope, like I don't like any of that, and I don't like how the slopes on the mane aren't consistent. I really wish I could do more with the mane. A surprising amount of these pieces, of the pieces I am using for Drunzer, come in the colors that they should, and I am constantly surprised as I build this guy. Like, a lot of these pieces just happen to come in red or happen to come in bright light orange, and that's great. Like, it's been easy in that way, but it hasn't come together as smoothly as Dragoon, and that's been a little off-putting to me. I don't immediately like it as much as I do Dragoon, and that's sort of frustrating. So for the time being, I've taken a break with this model, and I will come back to it, and hopefully having expressed some of my feelings on it here and maybe taking some of your feedback to heart, I'll be able to make progress on this model and get it to a place where I like it a little bit better. This next one is for all the boomers, and by that I literally mean baby boomers. This is a cartoon character from the 60s. So ask your parents, maybe even ask your grandparents. This is Sugar Bear. He was a mascot for the cereal Sugar Crisp, now known as Golden Crisp. I think he's still technically the mascot. He's still on all of these cereal boxes. I don't know if there are commercials anymore, but he's been kind of redesigned and modernized, and I found him way more charming in the old commercials, which are all on YouTube, and they are hilarious. He also starred in a spin-off cartoon called Linus the Lionhearted, and I've been enjoying that recently. It's also on YouTube, and it basically has nothing to do with the cereal. I think it was just animated by the same company, so they were allowed to use the character. Some of the segments are a little bit dated. It can be a bit racist at times, but beyond that, everything involving Sugar Bear and the characters surrounding Sugar Bear is great. He's this smooth-talking, easygoing, carefree crooner who does kind of a Bing Crosby impression and plays the guitar, sings little ditties, and he is absolutely unstoppable. Between him and a box of Sugar Crisp, or a damsel in distress, he is a menace, and nothing gets in his way. Tanks, giant monsters, dark wizards, without a single care in the world, he brushes them aside like it's nothing, with only a fraction of his true strength. Reality is at this little bear's fingertips, and his power level is immeasurable. But I love him. He's great. Anyway, I wanted to capture Sugar Bear's likeness, so I built this visage. It's just a bust. I guess I could still build the rest of his body at this point. It might not be too hard, and it might actually be worth it at some point, but for right now, I just built the face, and I think it turned out pretty well. Some of the parts aren't properly colored. I used red and dark red in place of some pieces which should be brown, but honestly, at a distance, dark red and reddish brown are super close to one another, and he still looks mostly complete, even in this technically incomplete state. I think he's pretty recognizable and looks pretty good. You can see I built in some depth to the face. He is a 2D character, and I wanted him to look 2D. His proportions change, from depiction to depiction, but I went with what I felt was appropriate for the pieces that I had, and I also wanted it to be super clean from both the front, the side, and the back, so I went out of my way to give him this, depth and this layering, which just adds a lot to the model, I think. Here he is from the back, and just the snot techniques I used means that some of the ratios are a little bit off. Like I built from the middle outward, and it was hard to get certain things to line up exactly. So there are a few gaps here and there. Maybe I'm just doing things wrong. Maybe there's a way to make this look a little bit more cleaner than I have it right now. But I haven't found that yet. Maybe I just don't know enough about building in this style at this point to make it as clean as possible. But I tried my best. Here is kind of the internal structure of the way his head attaches to the turtleneck and how I achieved that layering with jumper plates in the middle. The center of his head is mostly hollow, and I actually had to build sideways and attach his head to the turtleneck in a very unconventional way, which actually makes it uncentered by like a millimeter, and that really frustrates me. But I mean, unless you're looking for it, you're probably not even going to notice it. And again, I tried my best. Maybe there's a better way to do this, but this is what I've got for now. And if I do decide to continue this and build the rest of his body, I might try and rework the way his head attaches as well. At the very least, I think I am going to make his ears tiles, and I am going to get the parts in the proper colors to make him entirely brown, because I do like the idea of, at the very least, having a little bust of Sugar Bear on my desk. And if I decide to build the rest of his body and have a complete figure of Sugar Bear, then that is just a cherry on top. Next up, I built another Synchro Frame, and this, like Bunker General, like Virus, is just kind of another dude, just another robot to populate this world, to be in the background. He's not piloted by a significant character or a significant team. He's just there for one of the main characters to fight, you know? I need a lot of those for the story I want to tell eventually. To work. So this is Kuro Kori. His name comes from the Japanese words for black and ice, so it's a stylized way of saying black ice, and he has ice powers. Now, it's nothing super broken or manipulative like Elsa or Frozone or Iceman or anything like that. He can't drop glaciers on people or freeze them solid. Basically, he has this generator on his back that powers coils on his arms, which freeze upon contact. So when he punches, the air around his punches gets real cold, and that slows down his opponent's movements and weakens their armor so that his punches are more effective. You know, very tame, very simple. I want it to be sort of realistic on some level. I started building this guy using the piece for his chest, and that determined kind of his shape and his color. But beyond that, building Synchro Frames is getting easier and easier as I establish this world, because a lot of their jointage mechanisms are very similar. I want the robots of this world to all be very consistent with one another, because the metagame is fairly established. You know, what's proven is proven, and what works, works. So a lot of them, you know, use very similar servos and very similar mechanical aspects. A lot of them have the same, you know, jump jet technology, the same optics, the same, you know, amount of movement in a lot of their joints. So because of that, building Synchro Frames is getting easier and easier, but I kind of need that, you know? Synchro Frames are an outlet for me to just build cool little robot designs without a whole lot of thought put into them. And I need an outlet like that just to expend creativity. And so this is just another one of those Synchro Frames. He's got the jump jets on his arms and his legs. You know, he's got slopes for all of his limbs and even his head. He's a very kind of generic looking design, I think. But that's also good, because like I said, I need a lot of Synchro Frames just to be there. And so it's okay if some of them are just dudes, you know, some of them are just side characters. And for what it's worth, I think this guy looks pretty cool. He's inspired, actually, by some of the mecha from the anime IGPX, which is one of my favorites. It's about racing robots, and this guy has similar vibes to some of the robots from Team Black Egg, and even some of the robots from Team Sledge Mama, who have, like, similar little thrusters on their arms like this. I think he's still very cool, but, you know, Synchro frames sometimes are going to be a little bit by the numbers, and I think this guy falls into that category a little bit. Here he is fighting off against Red Aster, who is one of the more prominent characters, just for example. Like I said, nothing too special, nothing super broken or powerful. He's just another robot who's got his gimmick, and that's about it. On the final day, I built kind of an Omega Greeble, just a mass of tightly knit parts that could form like the engine block of a spaceship or something like that. I knew that I didn't want to build an entire spaceship around this, so I needed to reach some sort of conclusion so it could stand on its own. And in it, I saw kind of a face with eyes and like horned elements, so I added teeth to it, and I'm calling this a cyber demon mask. It almost has like a faction symbol quality to it, like the logo for a team or a band or a company or something like that. Either way, it looks sort of cool, and it's quite dense, and I tried to cut out as many gaps as I could to make it one solid mass, and it looks super cool. It started with just this connection here. It's a harpoon, a rifle, a pistol, and some binoculars. And the harpoon and the rifle actually clip together, but then the other two pieces have like channels in them that very snugly slot in between the two guns. And it's a really cool connection. It fits pretty tightly. And I wanted to expand on this and go as far as I could with it. And this is what I ended up with before I got to a point where it became a little bit of a stretch to add on top of it. If I wanted to invest more time into this, like I said, I would build a spaceship or something around it, but I wanted to call it quits here. From the other side, it looks very similar, but you can see that these pulley elements look a little bit less like eyes. You can see the other half of the guns on top. They swing back, and that added to my impression that they sort of look like horns. Something I found, though, when building this is that there are two different versions of this pulley element, which actually became relevant when I was building this because the tolerances were different, and I couldn't understand why until I looked at these two pieces closely. Before, this pulley element was the part above, and it is literally like a millimeter smaller in every single dimension. At some point, and I don't know why, they redesigned this piece. They made a new mold for it, and it looks almost identical, except almost every aspect about it is ever so slightly bigger. And it's strange, and it probably wouldn't matter in any case but this. But because I was compacting pieces together so densely, I had one of these pulleys as one eye and another pulley as the other eye, and one side was looser than the other, and it actually came up that the fact that these two parts are technically different, it mattered, and that kind of surprised me, and it led to this discovery. They changed this piece at some point, so there's a fun fact for you. Well, in the end, this end screen doesn't end up looking that different after all, but man, it is way harder than you might think in my editing software to get text scrolling smoothly from one side of the frame to the other. It might seem simple, but I spent way too much time figuring that out. Anyway, once again, consider joining the Builders Block Discord server, and extra special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, especially Valraven, Beyond the Brick, and Beta, after all this time. Until next week, this has been Rollout, signing off.